I'd be home by 9. Hell, I tell her that most of the time. Whoa, baby, don't know, won't hurt her too much. Whoa, I'll tell her where, but I won't say what. Oh, now I'm dancing, oh, I'm dancing. I'm dancing with the devil. Oh, now I'm dancing, oh, I'm dancing. I'm dancing with the devil. Oh, pour me a whiskey.
Hello, welcome back to Otter Creek in Rio Grande. I'm going to get started on a structure build, but before I dive off into it, I thought I would share something that should make the build go easier, I hope. For a while, I've had plans on creating a roll-around bench that will work for the workbench here, and so that's what this down here is. This is a roll-out bench that has hopefully everything that I need to work on structures, scratch builds, anything else I might be doing at the workbench. So I'm going to show you that just real quick before we get started here. Just a quick overview of what I've got going on over here. So on the far end, furthest from me over here, I've got plastic scrap, I've got wood scrap, I've got some other boxes of details that, you know, I might need, who knows, or just basically detail scraps is probably the best way to describe it. I've got a couple other little tools here that I might make use of. A lot of this stuff I've had, but like I rarely ever use this box back here. This, I forget what it's called, but occasionally it comes in handy. It works pretty good for N scale, not so much for HO in my opinion. And then down on the bottom shelf, I've got plastic round stock and strip, evergreen. And then that bigger box back there is a long wood strip. And then down here, this box is all of my nice scribe paneling wood and or scribed wood brick. And then I've got this box over here is all of my Tichy windows. And then that box is full of other details like shingles and things like that, and other, I think I've got other windows and doors in that box as well. So pretty much everything's kind of designed to be within arm's reach and then have a dedicated spot for it, so I'm not constantly having to go look for something to find out what it is I'm needing. Now, I'm trying to deliberately keep this section clean, so you know, if I'm working on a project, that's kind of where the stuff you don't want right in front of you to be, but maybe you'll need it in a few minutes or whatever. That's the idea there. And if I work on, say, train cars, I might roll this out and then I've got a whole nother piece of plywood with all of my train car stuff that will go on it. And so it's kind of a modular concept is the idea there. Now let's go ahead and talk about the structure build itself. I'm going to build the Dabler Mill and Supply Company. This is a kit that I've had my eye on for, I don't know, years. I think I first saw this structure on Rob Bennett's railroad, and I just loved it, and I've wanted to build it ever since I saw it. And You could probably argue that this was a little bit of an impulse on my part. It's going to be about 12 inches square, I think, is the footprint. I really don't know yet. But one could argue that maybe it doesn't even belong on the Otter Creek in Rio Grande. I don't really care about that. My only real concern is that I've got 3, maybe as many as 5 locations that I think this will fit. And I would say in all 5, I might be forcing the scene a little bit. I won't know for sure until I get the structure built. And then, of course, I might need to manipulate the structure a little bit as I go. But I don't know where I'm at on that yet. I just know for sure that I want this on my railroad somewhere. Now, I know earlier in previous videos, I've said that I was going to do the Dirty Shame next up there in Silver Gulch. And, I decided that I don't really need to do anything in Silver Gulch. At one particular point in time, it was a priority to me. Now I'm leaning towards Maroon Creek should maybe be the first area where I concentrate on all of the structures being completed and starting with scenery. So my first location of choice for this building is in the Maroon Creek area if it works out right. If it doesn't work out right, well, we'll just have to see what happens after that. But enough of me yammering about, where it should go and other things. Let's just go ahead and look at the structure itself. It provides some pictures and kind of shows you everything from 4 different views. And I've looked at the instructions just a little bit, and they're pretty extensive. There's several different little buildings in here. And I think, near as I can tell, I'm going to have to determine what some of these pieces are just by looking at the pictures in here. But it looks like the pictures are done well enough. There shouldn't be any confusion about what the pieces are, hopefully. And he says in here that it ought to take about a month to build. So I think without a doubt, this will be a multi-part video series. And my plan right now is not to air the first episode until the whole thing is completed. So let's go ahead and look at some of the pieces off inside the kit itself. Now, I'm also experimenting with some new camera angles here, so we'll just kind of have to see how this works. All right, this looks like feed sacks, and I'm not sure what else, windows, some chimneys probably. And then, of course, we've got some white metal castings. Looks like some pretty cool stuff off in there. Now, I have kind of gone in and looked at some of this stuff already so that I would have an idea of the overall size. And I'm not going to bring everything out. I just thought I'd show a couple examples of what the kit looks like to begin with. I presume that's a floor. That's probably also a floor. What else do we have in here? I don't know whether those are floors or not. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And it looks like some of the stuff's already popped out of this sprue. This is more what the building is going to look like, I think. So there's one of the walls. There's the front, I think. And there's the back. One of the reasons why I really like this is there's a place to actually park a car inside of. So that is there. It's got that nice recess right there. It's just a really cool building. And this did actually exist. I read the primer on it. I think it existed in Tennessee, somewhere back east. I might be wrong about that. It looks like really nice parts. If I can determine what is what. And then I'm not sure about this. This is probably all of the laser cut windows and other detail parts that allow you to glue things on, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be a glue backing. And then this is brick, but it looks to me like this right here is wood. Maybe you can choose to either model it with brick or model it as wood. Kind of hard to tell for sure. All right. Now that I've kind of shown you a big stack of wood, I think it's time to dig a little deeper into the instructions and see what comes next. I've got the first wall built up, and I did paint the back side. It suggested that you painted, if you're going to paint one side, paint two sides to help keep it from warping. Now, in addition to painting, I added these bracing sticks, not part of the kit. I'm hoping I didn't get myself in any trouble here. I looked through the instructions 3 different times, and I saw no reference to a floor anywhere in the kit, so I think I'm going to be okay. As far as the color on the inside goes, black might have been a better color. I don't know. I decided that at some point in the build, I might want to put something behind one of these doors or windows just to show proof of life. And in which case, I thought, maybe an industrial gray would be more appropriate than black. So now I'm going to start working on the front before I put any windows in. Okay, I'm going to try and show a little bit of what I'm doing here. I fussed around a little bit more with my camera and jerry-rigged an apparatus that could kind of hold it in a place that I would be allowed to see what I'm doing and at the same time let you guys see. So I'm using a very thin flat brush. I don't know what they're called. I call them a chisel brush. And the idea here is to go just underneath the clapboard. I'm using full strength, not thinned in the slightest, this folk art vintage white. And so I'm not wanting to paint the whole clapboard. And you can do as little or as much as you want, because when we come back over the top of this with a wood stain, the paint won't stain, or at least not very much as compared to the wood, and you end up with a nice weathered painted building look. Now, it's all about taste, and I don't know if I mentioned it in my previous comments, but this is the E Dabler, and I'm going to change the name to the E Carroll, and the E will stand for Earl, which is it's my uncle and somewhat of a namesake. My middle name happens to be Earl, and my grandfather's middle name was Earl, and my father's youngest brother first name is Earl. So this is a great way for me to pay a little family homage. Now, as far as the weathering goes, the railroad has been around a while, so to speak, and Earl is nearing retirement, and some employees have heard Earl say, "Why would I want to repaint the building? The next owner can repaint the building." So Earl at the moment is not at all concerned with how much paint may or may not be on the building, which suits me just fine. Now, if you don't know why I'm, going up underneath the clapboard, if you actually look at one of these buildings with clapboard siding, you'll find that the paint stays underneath the clapboard and then weathers away on the outer edge of the clapboard. So that's the idea here. Now, you could absolutely go in with a sponge and find a quicker way of doing this and still get fantastic results. But for the discriminating modeler, the paint would actually stay up underneath the clapboard and then weather away on the outside edge of the clapboard. That's the idea. pretty much just doing the exact same thing that I did before, but I'm using kind of what's already happened as somewhat of a guideline to what I've already done to kind of get a variation of colors, because the white that's on before is now kind of gray, and I am allowing my paint to be just a little bit thinner so I can get it to go a little bit further, and I'm still trying to stay up inside the clapboard more so than on the bottom side of it. And it's just a matter of continuing to work, taking your time, and enjoying the process. Of course, when you're right up on top of it, everything looks real, I don't know, obvious. But from 3 feet away, the appropriate effect should prevail. Been working on the windows, and I'm about to put in my last one, so I thought I would go ahead and share some thoughts about that process. So I like to build the window first, and you have peel and stick on the back side of these windows, and they're a two-piece window. Kind of hard to see, but you put the sash on the bottom side. You can also model them in an up position like I have on a few of these, and you just stick that on there, and then you come back in on top with your glazing. And I always leave the paper on for as long as I can, which I generally end up with fingerprints on them anyway. But then after you get the window built, what you want is you want to make sure that that window can come through the hole in whatever it is you're going to put it in a way that it's not loosey-goosey, but you want it to easily go through the window square. That way, when you put the frame on the front side, I can kind of line it up. You want the frame to be as square as absolutely possible. And I did take the backing off of this, so it should stick. Just kind of check and double check. Everything looks like that ought to go. Now, of course, I just did what I told you not to do, and that is that you should always check and make sure that the window falls through without any distortion, and it will not, so I need to go ahead and remove that and do a little more sanding. It's generally on the side is where the issue is. See if it goes through without distorting. I think it still needs a little more. And you can also come in and very carefully sand the sides down of the window frames as well. I don't know that that was square. All right, that should work. So what do I do with my frame? This is one of those things that I just eyeball. There's really no other way to do it. Now, because I don't trust the peeling stick, I paint in very carefully some matte medium. And then trying to work and see and make sure you guys see. So I just want to make sure that the window itself is making contact with the frame. It might take a little more effort. And part of the problem with this particular window is I accidentally put this frame up here, and this was a one-piece frame because I didn't pay close enough attention to the instructions. Actually, I did. I got ahead of myself, and I was thinking that, well, I just didn't remember. So the idea, of course, is that when these frames go in, they're straight and true because you didn't force them into the hole. They're making contact with the outside frame, and they aren't distorted. So there you go. Now I'm on to these two things, which are a built-up of some kind with louvers in them. I think it's step 4. I'm just now kind of finishing up with step 3. Well, here is the final results of steps 1 through 3. One completed wall. And I'm fairly happy with it. Went ahead and made the louvers that black green and kind of scratched off some of the paint to make it a little bit more weathered. I might do something else later. Haven't added any of the detail parts yet. I think there's a hoist right here. I'm not sure. But obviously I'm not going to be able to do every step of the entire build. I'm not sure what the next video will entail. I'll probably do a lot of working of just specific walls, and then maybe come back when I'm gonna glue some things together. We'll just have to see how it works out. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching Otter Creek and Rio Grande. We will see you in the future.
Oh, pour me a whiskey, old barkeep.